Hey kids, welcome to today's episode of Books with Badges. I'm Officer Steve, and today I'm going to be reading you a book called Miss Nelson is Back by Harry Allard and James Marshall. This book's about a class of school kids whose teacher has to leave them for a week, and they're going to be getting a substitute teacher. And I want everybody to pay attention how these kids go ahead and treat their substitute that comes into the classroom for the week. And at the end of the story, we'll go ahead and we'll have a little conversation about maybe how we should be treating our guests in our classroom, especially our substitute teachers. So I'm going to get my glasses on, make reading a little bit easier. Someday you'll get old and you'll have the same problem. Again, Miss Nelson is back. On Friday, Miss Nelson told her class that she was going to have her tonsils taken out. "I'll be away a week," she said, "and I expect you kids to behave." "Yes, Miss Nelson," said the kids of room 207. I bet those kids were happy when they found out that they were going to have a substitute teacher. They're probably going to act a little crazy for her. But at recess, it was another story. "Wow," said the kids, "while Miss Nelson is away, we can really act up." "Not so fast," said a big kid from room 309. "Haven't you ever heard of Viola Swamp?" "Who?" said the children. Miss Nelson's kid said, "Who is Viola Swamp?" "Miss Swamp is the meanest substitute teacher in the whole world," said the big kid. "Nobody acts up when she's around." "Ooh," said Mrs. Nelson's kids. "She's a real witch," the big kid said. "Ooh," said Miss Nelson's kids. "I'll just bet you get the swamp," said the big kid. "He's like a big, mean, rotten kid." "I don't know, Miss Swamp sounds pretty mean. I wouldn't want her to be my substitute teacher." On Monday morning, Miss Nelson's kids were all in their seats. They were very, very nervous. Some of them had not slept all weekend. "If we get the swamp, I'll just die," said one kid. They heard the footsteps in the hall. Slowly, the knob turned on their classroom door, and the door opened. "Oh my gosh, I wonder who's coming through that door. I hope it's not Viola Swamp. She's mean." When the door opened, it was Mr. Blandsworth, the school principal. "I shall personally take over this class," he said. Miss Nelson's kids were so relieved, but they soon learned that Mr. Blandsworth was not a lot of fun. Look at Mr. Blandsworth. He looks like a real boring guy. His name is Blandsworth. Blandsworth. Bland means boring, kids, in case you didn't know. All morning, Mr. Blandsworth tried to amuse the class with his corny card tricks. "Oh, brother," said the class. That afternoon, Mr. Blandsworth showed the class his favorite shadow pictures. This is kid stuff," the kids in the class were saying. The next day, Mr. Blandsworth demonstrated his favorite bird calls. They were not a success. And for 2 days, Mr. Blandsworth showed slides of his goldfish, Lucille. Miss Nelson's kids were never so bored in their life as they were with Mr. Blandsworth. Look, she's making bird calls, showing pictures with his fingers, and videos about his fish named Lucille. How boring is that, Mr. Blandsworth? While dusting erasers in the schoolyard. You kids don't even dust erasers anymore. Everything's done on the whiteboard, right? Well, in the old days, we used to have to go outside and clean the erasers off. While dusting erasers in the schoolyard, 3 of the ringleaders of classroom 207 discussed the situation. "Something will have to be done," they said. "We must get rid of Mr. Blandsworth." And they sat together and hatched a plot on how they were going to get rid of their principal. After school, they painted and sewed and borrowed some old clothes. And they practiced some very difficult stunt work in their backyard. There's the kids cleaning the erasers on this page. And on the other page, they're over there, they're sewing some clothes together, and they're practicing. Why is that kid on the other kid's shoulders, I wonder? I guess we'll find out. The next day, they weren't in class. That's too bad, said Mr. Blandsworth. They'll miss all the excitement. Mr. Blandsworth was about to show the class his collection of ballpoint pens from all over the world when someone came to the door. Could you imagine your teacher sitting there showing you pens? How boring would that be? Then someone came to the door. Slowly, the knob turned and the door opened. Oh my gosh, I hope it wasn't that mean witch teacher. Here they come. Someone's coming in that door. Oh, look, said the class. Miss Nelson is back. A tall, lumpy Miss Nelson tottered into the room. Mr. Blandsworth was surprised. You're back sooner than we expected, he said. The tall and lumpy Miss Nelson didn't speak. Said the kids. Her throat must be sore from having her tonsils taken out. Are you sure you're well enough, said Mr. Blandsworth. She's sure, said the kids. Well, in that case, said the principal, I'll be getting back to my office. Nice to see you back, Miss Nelson. And he left the room. Look at the kids dressed up like Miss Nelson. And she's not talking because the principal would recognize her voice. See what's next here. This is crazy. Hot dog, cried the class. We got rid of Blandsworth. Now we can just do whatever we want to do. And then at the stroke of 10 o'clock in the morning, the kids from room 207 left the building and no one stopped them. They went straight to the movies where they saw The Monster That Ate Chicago twice. This is really living, said the kids. Afterward, they went to Lulu's where they stuffed themselves silly with ice cream and candy. Man, these kids are rotten. These kids pretended that their teacher came back and then they went to the movies and to the ice cream store. Can you believe that? Oh man, I hope their moms don't find out. Yeah, get in big trouble. Heading back to school, they passed Miss Nelson's house. Miss Nelson couldn't believe her eyes. Those are my kids, she said in a scratchy voice. What are they doing out of school? And who is that with them? Miss Nelson telephoned Mr. Blandsworth to see what was going on. You're not Miss Nelson, said Blandsworth. Miss Nelson is back to work. And he hung up the phone. Can't fool me, he said. Something will have to be done. And Miss Nelson went into her closet. Look at that. She realized that the kids are trying to pull a trick on the principal, and he doesn't even realize that they're tricking him. Back in room 207, Miss Nelson's kids were spending an agreeable afternoon. They were very pleased with themselves. We should do this more often, they said. They didn't even notice. Next thing you knew, there was a figure out in the hallway, though. Oh boy. Remember, Miss Nelson saw the kids outside with the fake Miss Nelson. Slowly, the knob turned on the door, and the door opened. See, the kids are just hanging around the classroom, not doing what they're supposed to do. But we'll see who comes in this doorway. I think the kids are in for big trouble. The door slammed open. Hello, my name is Viola Swamp, said the lady in a scratchy voice. That's right, said Miss Swamp. I'm here to whip this class into shape. Get back in those desks on the double. The class did as they were told. The big kid from room 309 was certainly right. Miss Swamp was a real witch. Man, these kids are in big trouble. They are scared to death of Viola Swamp. She's a witch. She knew how to get results. The class did a whole week's worth in no time. We shouldn't have gotten rid of Mr. Blandsworth, they said. Pipe down, said the swamp, or just something under the desk attracted her to their attention. Oh boy. She's really mean. She's really, really mean. It was a mask. Ah, said Miss Swamp. So that's your little game, as she tried on the mask just as Mr. Blandsworth stepped into the room. Miss Nelson, said Blandsworth, I'm of the opinion that someone has been impersonating you. Uh-oh, said the kids. You don't say, said Miss Swamp. Probably some kid's acting up. I'm sure it won't happen again. And Mr. Blandsworth left. So Mr. Blandsworth finally figured out that those kids were playing a trick on him. They found the face of the Miss Nelson face mask and they put it on. Ugh. And it won't sit well, said Mrs. Swamp to the class, because the swamp will be watching. So look, she's watching them. Let me turn this page a little bit. She's watching. She's really, really scared. These kids are scared to death because they were tricking everybody, pretending that Miss Nelson wasn't there. However, a minute later, Miss Nelson appeared. She says, I'm back, and popped in the door. Miss Nelson came back. You think Miss Nelson's mad that they tried tricking? Hot dog, cried the kids. We are so glad to see you. Didn't you have fun with Mr. Blandsworth? Asked Miss Nelson. Said the kids. The kids decided not to mention Miss Viola Swamp, but they wondered why Mrs. Nelson hadn't seen her in the hall. The end. Hooray, Miss Nelson is back. So, I guess the moral to the story is, kids, let's think about what they did. These kids love their teacher. She's their favorite teacher they ever had. But when she went away for a week, they decided that they were going to act up and not behave for the substitute teacher. Well, when they found out that the substitute teacher was the principal, well, you know, Mr. Blandsworth, God, Blandsworth, I'm glad my name is not Blandsworth. But when they tried to pull a trick on him, then boy, were they surprised when Miss Viola Swamp came in and cracked the whip in that classroom. She was so mean. Do you kids have any idea who Viola Swamp was? Well, when you read the book, when you see in that one page, it looks like Viola Swamp really was Miss Nelson. She tricked her own kids. And you know what? Remember, when your teacher goes out of town or when your teacher's sick, she's always going to get a report back to see who was acting up. So you guys need to make sure that you behave when you have that substitute teacher in your class. Well, guys, that's it for today. I hope that you can come back and join us again for our next episode of Books with Badges. Have a good day.